Toastmasters Club a few guests, so welcome. This is not our typical meeting. We're actually competing, if you will, to be the best humorous speaker of the club. And then the winner would move on to the area division and so on. Now, there are, of course, some rules of the contest, and I will go over that. But before I do that, everybody has an agenda, right? So we have 3 contestants today, and I have established.
It's not 4 anymore?
It's 3, yeah.
Which one dropped?
And I'll tell you what the speaking order is. Number 1 will be Rohit Moza. Number 2, Michael Matti. And number 3, Carl Urban.
Number 3?
Carl Urban.
Who's number 1?
Can you be a little louder, please?
Yeah, I'm not feeling well today, so my voice is a little weak, but number 1 is Rohit. Yeah.
Number 1 is Rohit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Rohit number 1, number 2 Michael, number 3 Carl.
Okay.
Now, in terms of the rules, I'll just go over them very briefly. The contestants have been confirmed to be eligible, so they're Toastmasters in good standing, and not an international district or area officer. The speeches have to be original. The speakers can stay in the room, but no one will be allowed to go in and out during the speech contest. And the timing of the speech is 5 to 7 minutes. So any speaker less than 4 minutes 30 seconds or more than 7:30 will be disqualified. The timing cards will be activated as follows. So there's the green card at 5 minutes. So hold it up.
So, quick question. So if they're 4 minutes and 30 seconds, they're still okay? They don't have to be bang on 5 minutes?
So it should be, if it's 4:30, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, but don't worry, just write down whatever time.
Yeah.
That's all you need to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 5 is
5,
green?
5, and then 6 is yellow. Hold it up. Red is at 7, and hold it up until the end of the speech.
Right.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So timing starts when the first word uttered, or any form of communication to the audience. There's going to be 1 minute of silence between speeches, so the judges can deliberate. Protests can be entered only by contestants or judges. And once the results have been announced, all decisions are final. Any questions? Anything not clear? Pretty good. Okay.
Do I have to share the time with the judges?
With me?
With you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So when it's done, just give it to me, and that's all you need to do.
Okay. Perfect.
And I'm not going to forget Roberto this time, so I want to welcome Roberto to share his humor tip of the day for us.
You didn't forget me the last time.
Well, I eventually
Oh,
got there. Got there.
Now I feel much better.
All right, let's welcome Roberto up.
Wait until you hear the jokes and then.
You're not going to come up?
Oh, right now?
Yeah.
It's your turn.
Oh,
Just
okay. I
shout.
thought you were gonna have the speakers first. No problem.
Get some humor first.
As my as my mother said, you were born ready.
All time.
Now, since I see a few new faces and a few faces that I saw before, but not in the last few, how many were here the last meeting 2 weeks ago? How many? Okay. I just want to ask you very quickly if you remember the very first tip that I ever gave you, because my job is to give you some tips on humor. Does anybody remember what was the very first tip I ever gave you? Those of you who were here? Just quick review.
Don't offend anybody.
That's right. Never, ever embarrass anybody, offend anybody, never put anybody down. If anything, talk about yourself and make fun of yourself, but never make fun of others. So that was tip 1. Do you remember tip number 2 before I go to 3? Do you remember tip number 2? Okay. Pay attention where you are, because there is always something funny going around. Like, for instance, in restaurants, right? Like last week, I read to you a sign that I saw. Well, there was a few signs in this restaurant, but one of the signs said, the more you tip, the nicer we are. And that was actually a sign on the restaurant, so I wrote it down. And the restaurant's name was Ed, and it was a fish place. So it said, Ed's Diet Specials. Half the food, half the calories, but full price. So whenever you go somewhere, if you find humor, my suggestion is to write it down and take advantage of that. And my tip today, in fact, is please never ever leave home without a pen and a pencil and a paper. You know how you hear, don't leave home without American Express? Don't leave home without it? I always say, if you want to be in the business of speaking or you want to learn about, like giving speeches or whatever, always have even a small booklet, like you can buy them in the dollar store, and a pen. Because you never know when you come up across something funny. And even though you might say, oh, well, I'll remember. Chinese say a drop of ink lasts longer than 1,000 words. So always write things down. You write it down because, I'll remember that. And then you forget. You forget the next day probably, right? So my tip today is always have a pen and a paper. So that a pen and a pencil and a paper and a notebook so that you can write things down. So I tell you, for instance, one of those times that I went to a place that was for newcomers. These newcomer centers. Has anybody ever been a newcomer? Because I was many years ago. Okay, so when you're a newcomer, there are places called newcomers, right? And I never forget, I went into the newcomer place to find some information, and there was something so funny written on the wall that I wrote it down, and it dealt with people learning English and the meaning of certain words, what it is in English, right? So somebody wrote bacteria, and what does it mean? And it was written, the rear entrance to a cafeteria. They made it funny so people, relax, because when you're there, I don't speak English, and you're nervous. Another one wrote, what's a raisin? And they wrote, a worried grape. And what's research? When you look for something twice.
Research.
Coincide. When you say I coincide with even the thought, right? But coincide, what is it? And they wrote, what most people do when it rains. Oh. You get it? I know it takes a while. Coincide, meaning go inside, right? And finally, what's an undercover agent? And they wrote, a spy in bed. So you see, do you think I could have remembered all of this? No, I wrote it down because it's funny stuff, and then I can use it, when I teach a class or in my speeches, so you guys can use it. But if you write things down, it really, really works. And one thing also that I write down is when I hear something that is really good, aside from humor, one of you in one of your speeches over the last few months said something which I wrote down, and I wanted to tell you because it really was so good. It said, communication is to relationships as oxygen is to life. Isn't that beautiful? Mm-hmm. Communication is to relationships as oxygen is to life. It's a nice thought, a nice sentence, nothing to do with humor, but it's a good thing. But again, if I didn't have a pen with me, I couldn't have written it down. So my suggestion today, my tip, and I suggest you write it down. Those of you that don't have a pen and a paper, you're missing out because the idea is that you learn something, right? So again, my suggestion is write it down. Communication is to relationship as oxygen is to life. Anyway, so that's what I wrote down, Ken, from one of your speakers, which was, to me, was terrific. I thought it was great. And when I talked about pay attention where you are, because there is always something funny around, and I think you remember, and some of you brought it back to my attention, when I was teaching in a church, little kids, I had like 30 kids once a week. While the pastor would speak, I would entertain 30 kids and teach them stuff. And I asked the children, can you please write a question that you would ask God if you met him face to face? What would you ask God? What question would you ask him? Do you remember that?
The giraffes to do that.
That's right. You see, remember that one, which is, dear God, did you mean for giraffes to look like that, or was it an accident? Isn't that funny? I mean, this is a little 7, 8-year-old kid writing that. And the second one wrote, dear God, it's very good that each kid has one mother and one father. Did it take you long to think of that? Signed, Daniel. I say this because some of you were not here when I said this. And finally, dear God, why do I have to pray when you know anyway what I want? But I'll do it if it makes you feel better. You see? So this happened in a church, and the one before happened in a restaurant. So what I'm saying is always pay attention where you are, and have a pen and a paper, a pen, what do you call it, a pen and a booklet, so that you can write it down, because it really works. It really works. And one more thing that I wanted to share with you is I went to somebody's house. And when you go to somebody's house to visit, also pay attention, especially if there are kids. You know, kids are so funny, and they always come up with funny stuff, right? So I was visiting a friend, I think it was last year, and they had a little child who just started kindergarten. So we were talking, and all of a sudden the kid, he was kind of grumpy. So he says, "School is a waste." And that was his first day in kindergarten, okay? He says, "Come on," said Mom. "Come on, it cannot be that bad." And little Johnny says, "Yes, it is." "But why?" And the child says, "Because there we sit, the whole bunch of us, we are sitting there, we cannot read or write, and the teacher won't even let us talk." So they can't read, they can't write, and they cannot talk. So of course it was miserable for him. But that was so funny the way the kid said. So you have to pay attention to circumstances. And one that I know that one of you, in fact, came back and met me at the elevator one day and told me, "Oh, yeah, I remember that, what you said about your grandfather." You remember I told you my grandparents died in Canada about 25 years ago. My grandpa was 92, my grandmother 87. And the one thing that I think kept them alive so long was because they were always joking and they were always singing. And my grandpa was a tailor, a humble tailor. That's all he did for 60 years. He made pants and jackets. That's all he did. That was his profession from back home in Hungary. But he was always joking, and he was always smiling, and he was always singing. And I think that's what kept him alive so long. But I told you when he became 90, do you remember what happened the day he turned 90 years old, that he went downstairs to pick up the mail, and the superintendent looks at him? I know you remember because you're the one who brought it to my attention. You remember? Anybody else remember what he said?
My jeans.
Oh, no, that was the second one. But the first thing, when the superintendent shakes my grandfather's hand and says, "Eugene, congratulations, today is your 90th birthday. This is amazing. Happy birthday. Let me shake your hand." And my grandpa says, "You don't have to, it shakes by itself." Well, okay, since he remembers the second one, I'm going to say, he looks at my grandfather's face, who hardly had any wrinkles. He really didn't. And he says, "How come you keep so long? You're 90 years old and you don't have many wrinkles. You got like very few." He says, "How do you do it? What's your secret?" And my grandpa says, "It's in the genes." And the superintendent said, "What do you mean?" And my grandpa answered, "I never wear them too tight." So guys, remember, pencil and notebook. Thank you, Ken.
All right, excellent. Before I move on, I actually need to get the speech titles of each of our contestants. If you don't mind just writing it for me. Let's get rolling then. We're pleased to have our first contestant, Rohit Mosa. Awesome. Awesome.
I awesome.
I awesome.
Sorry. There you go. Okay, good evening everyone. Good evening Toastmasters. Good evening guests. Good evening judges. Today my speech is about I awesome. Do you have iPad? iPhone? Android devices? Yeah? Okay, smartphones, laptops. Great, yeah, we all have all of these things. So it's great. Like I love it. I love technology. You know, I'm an engineer. You know, I've been using technology since I was 5 in 1995, using Windows 95. So I've been doing it for a while now. And when I started off, it was great. And I'll walk you through my day, how I wake up. So I get up from bed. I get up. I look at my iAwesome. Look at my phone. Okay. Okay. What's happening? Facebook. Let's go on Facebook. Ooh, okay. Someone liked my post, 15 likes. Yeah, I like it. All right, what's next? Instagram, let me go on Instagram. Okay, I check my Instagram, great. Let me go on Slack. Slack is a messaging app. I check out if there's any things I need to attend to. So I manage a project with India. So they do message me at 1 a.m. because that's their time. And I have to manage a project, so by 9 a.m. I have to get back to them. So I'm like, okay, great. You know, what's happening on Slack? Let me figure out if there's any issues. Let me do my Scrum Master role. I do that. Then it's like, yeah, 10 minutes are over. I'm like, I'm pumped. I'm like geared up. My blood pressure is up, and it's awesome. I love it, because it's my awesome, right? It's the best thing ever. Then what do I do after that? So then I move on to during the day. I have my iAwesome with me all the time, keeping me awesome, keeping me happy, keeping me connected. So I am working. I get notification, message. Oh, what's this message? Oh, Instagram. Oh, okay. Someone's eating something, which I really have to know about right now because it's awesome. My awesome keeps me updated on whatever everyone else is doing. So I'm like, okay, great. Like I have to like that as well because someone else liked that thing. My iAwesome has to keep me in touch with everything. Awesome. That's really great. I love it. Then finally it's lunchtime. I go to lunch. I go to eat my lunch. My awesome follows me along. It's with me every step of the way. What's happening at lunch? Oh, let me do a Snapchat. I want to take a selfie. I want to share it with everyone else around because iAwesome keeps me connected. I can share it with everyone all the time and they can know I'm awesome. Great. It's going great. So yeah, as you can see, a lot of sharing, a lot of smartphone using, and it's awesome, right? Like, I mean, like, do you guys see a problem with this? Like, it's like the best thing ever. Stay connected all the time. I'm getting my social validation every single day. You know, people know I eat good food. People know I look good. People know I go around with good people. You know, it meets my need, and I'm happy. But my heart rate's also up. But it's okay. It's awesome. Okay, it's all good. All right. So, day's over. I'm home. Again with my awesome. I have some energy, I guess, right? I go home. I check. Okay, this post, 15 likes. Okay. That's strange. I posted a picture of a cat. This cat is French. It shovels snow, and it wants to form its own country. I don't know why no one wanted to, like this video. Only 15 likes. These people are stupid. Like they don't get it. It's okay. But I'm awesome because I have my iAwesome. I'm going to share something next, which will give me more social validation. There's no problem. It's all good, right? Okay, so now it's towards the end of the day. I've moved on from my iAwesome to my iLaptop, and I've got to watch my Game of Thrones. So it's around 10 p.m. at night. I know you might have all been there as well. Start Game of Thrones, episode 1, the dragon. It's killing somebody. Okay, great. 10 a.m. Then it's 11 p.m. Oh, one episode's over. I have to know what happened to the dragon. Like that dragon, it just killed all these people, and now I gotta know what's happening next. So, episode 2, great. 1 a.m. Okay, it's been 5 episodes. Maybe I should go to sleep. I've had an awesome day. My awesome and my laptop and all my devices. I think it's good to go to sleep. Then, okay. Afterwards, let's breathe. I get up again with my iAwesome. Cycle repeats itself. All right, so people, this was a dramatized version of anyone's day who uses a smartphone device. Half of these things I do every day. And as you can imagine, the iAwesome and your iLaptops and all these technology devices, they're there to help you. But as you can see, there's clearly a problem here. It is not a good thing to keep doing. So I would like to introduce you to Irresistible. Yeah, I know, I am irresistible. I know that. That's a given. But no, but I'm talking about this book. It's Irresistible. It's by Adam Alter. This device is irresistible. This book, it talks about behavior addiction. Technology is a behavior addiction. Behavior addiction is the same as substance addiction. That's what this book says. It tries to compare behavior addiction, like smartphone addiction, to cocaine. I know it sounds a bit funny, but in terms of like neurology and dopamine release, it is similar. Because what happens when we have pleasure, we experience pleasure centers in our brain get activated, and then we feel happy. That's what happens when we take a drug. That's what happens when I use my iAwesome every day. So let's breathe again. As you can see, I've been talking a lot of stuff, really hyped up with my iAwesome and my iAwesome day. But let's take a breath. Okay. So, as I said before, what I described today to you was a dramatized version of a day of me, could be anyone else in this room who's using smartphone devices or technology. Technology is there to help us be better. It's not there to impede us or cause behavior addiction or make it worse for us to manage our day. So what I would highly recommend to you is that please do read this book, Irresistible by Adam Alter. Try to see the light like I have. And I would recommend after this, go home, take a deep breath once again, and talk to someone face to face, and be in nature, and all of you be awesome on your own. Thank you.
In other words, shut off yourself for a while.
So, minutes for our judges, please.
No, I had it on
All timer, can you give us 1 minute? 1 minute for our judges. Good at time.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, I did.
You have a question or what's
No, I had it on the wrong time, which is why I went off after a minute, so I'm sorry about that alarm going off.
That's good.
But, so you keep it until 6? Okay, and then keep it until 10. Yeah. Okay, got that. That's 1 minute for the judges.
Okay, thank you. Alright. Our next contestant is Michael Nathi. Are you safe online? Are you safe online? Michael Nathi.
Awesome, or not so awesome. So I'm going to be talking about what is not so awesome about things that go online. Next slide, please. So once upon a time, there was a time when you had something valuable. You were put in your pocket, right? It would be gold coins, or it would be coins because you need to pay for something. You need to trade. But if you have a lot of wealth, what do you do with all these coins? So you end up putting it into a bank. A bank is a safe place to put all the money. Obviously, you had bandits, and one of these criminals was Billy the Kid. Billy the Kid was introduced in crime from a very young age. At the age of 14, he just did a little minor crime by stealing a few clothing items, right? Then it evolved. And he started rubbing more expensive ones. Next slide, please. So one day, Billy the Kid, he was working in a faction group, and there was a shooting. And because of the shooting, there was a bit of a tension. And that tension resulted in a full-out war. So maybe you ask yourself, if a little crime can grow and become a larger crime, and a larger crime, and eventually become a full-out war. Next slide. So when you think about something valuable today, would it be a physical coin? How often do you use a coin to pay for something? Or do you use a card? Do you use a credit card, debit card to pay for something? Right? I think most of us, we are more inclined to use Apple Pay or credit card because it's easier, it's more convenient to use. You don't need to carry all these coins. So you would imagine that the economy has moved away from something in the physical world to something in the digital world. And these companies here, Visa, PayPal, MasterCard, Bitcoin, they all operate in the digital world. Next slide. But is money your only commodity? What is valuable? What is valuable to you? Is it only coins? Next slide. Maybe you have some friends. Hopefully. You have a partner. You have kids. Maybe you work with kids. Are they valuable to you? Relationships. Are they valuable to you? I bet they are, right? So what makes them valuable? That could be because they're fun to be around with. Maybe they listen. Maybe they're kind. Maybe there's a trust. Maybe it's love. Maybe these people are close to you. Perhaps it just boils down to who they are, right? And how you relate to these people. But like in those days when you had the bandits, when you had Billy the Kid, you have bandits today. And they operate in the digital world. So, if these people are valuable to you, if these relationships are valuable to you, would they also be valuable to bandits, to criminals? Motivation. Next slide. 110 million. Next slide. 56 million cards hit. Next slide. 143 million records breached. Americans targeted in the United States just about a week ago. Right now, our estimate is about 100,000 people in Canada was impacted by this breach. What was Equifax? It is a credit agency. So your credit report, your credit score, it's held and kept by them. Why are the criminals targeting these companies? Why are we leaking so much data? We see it in the news, right? There must be some value there. Could it possibly be to do something with what color you like? I claim yes. What's your favorite color? Blue. Where were you born? Toronto? What's your mother's maiden name? What is your date of birth? If you can answer those questions, you can take over somebody's identity. I did a Google just a couple of days ago. Canada Identity Card. This is a small subset, right? This was running into hundreds, if not thousands, of pages upon pages of people's driving licenses. passports, identity cards. This is just the start. Where do you put your information? Do you put it behind something like that? If you put your information behind something like that, it's only protected by one password. If that password is stolen, all that information is gone. Next slide. So, you want to keep your kids safe, right? You don't want nasty people to do nasty things to your kids. You want to maintain your reputation. You don't want your reputation to be tarnished because somebody posted some fake images or some fake news about you. You want to keep sensitive things sensitive. You want to keep your calendar and timetable sensitive. Where do you move? Where are you moving to? These are all information that criminals will use. And with that note, I part you and I say, please be conscious of this. Not awesome. Remain safe. Thank you.
Timer 1 minute for our judges.
That's a minute.
Thank you. Our last contestant today is Carl Urban, Norwegian Wood. Norwegian Wood. Carl Urban.
Norwegian wood. What do you imagine when you hear those two words? Norwegian wood. What comes to mind? Is it a furniture? Or is it a song? Or is it a book? Those are my three questions. And let's answer them together. Furniture, by the way, fellow Toastmasters and guests and judges and everybody. First question is easy to answer. There is Norwegian furniture and it is available for sale. So it's definite yes. Now if you imagine a song, what did you imagine? What came to your mind? I have a joke for you. There is there's a conference, and the reporter asked Ringo Starr. He said, "Do you like topless bathing suits?" And Ringo answered, "Of course, we've been wearing them for years. I wear one." Lady reporter asks, "You are a superstar. What do you date much? Or you date often?" And Ringo answered, "What are you doing tonight?" Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles. I'm talking about the Beatles. It is John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr. They were
part of post-World War generation, later on part of flower power generation in late 1960s, and now they are part of baby boomers. Baby boomers are retired, or dead. And you ask, how come? Why? What's going on? Well, it's been 72 years since the end of Second World War. Now the song was written by John Lennon and Paul McCartney, and first time released in December 1965. It is that song has a spirit of rock and roll motivation, rock and roll of that time. In other words, S-E-X. And John Lennon said it bluntly when he said, I was trying to write a book about an affair, a song about an affair, and without me, wife, knowing that I'm writing about an affair. Now, that's an introduction. Now, let me refresh your memories. I once had a girl, or should I say, she once had me. She showed me her room, isn't it good, Norwegian wood? She asked me to stay and she told me to sit anywhere. So I looked around and I noticed there wasn't a chair. I sat on a rock, biding my time, drinking her wine. We talked until 2, and then she said, it's time for bed. Bow, ba-dee-dee-dong. So that's the Beatles. Now what about Norwegian Wood, the book? In 1987, it was Japanese author Haruki Murakami who wrote this book. It's amazing that even after 30 years, this book is still popular in Japan, even with young generations. Young people like it. And they claim that everybody in Japan read this book. The book describes the post-World War generation in Japan in late 1960s, which is called the flower generation. In other words, it writes about flower generation of Japan. It is a blend of music, student movement, and young man, first love. Yes, it is Japanese love story, and it blends also struggle, as I mentioned, student movement, suicide, and mental illness. Haruki Murakami was born in 1949. He in Japan. He lived also in Europe and United States. He wrote 19 books, and those 19 books were translated into more than 50 languages. And now, ladies and gentlemen, back to the Beatles. She told me she worked in the morning and started to laugh. I told her I didn't and crawled off to sleep in the bath. And when I awoke, I was alone. That bird has flown. So I lit a fire. Isn't it good? Norwegian wood. Thank you for Toastmasters.
For our judges, and when you're done, hold it up and our ballot counters will go.
2 minutes with judges?
Yeah.
Max 2 minutes.
Okay, excellent. So if I could have another round of applause for our contestants, and I'll welcome them up. Yeah, come up. Short interview. Yeah, how you doing? You should walk camera here. So, yeah, awesome dude, I'm sure. So, Well, tell us a bit about yourself. How long have you been at Toastmasters?
Sure. I've been at Toastmasters at this club since July. Yeah.
Excellent. And what do you like most about Toastmasters?
I like how this Toastmasters has the focus of being funny, and I like that because in our lives it's very important to smile, be funny, and I love that this club has that focus.
Excellent. Tell us a bit about maybe your hobbies, interests.
I'm into a lot of things, so yeah, I'm an engineer. I'm also interested in psychology, so that's why I read books like Irresistible, because I want to know more about human beings, because as an engineer, I'm making solutions for human beings. I'm not making it for robots. So it's very important for me to know about human beings, all of us.
Excellent. Well, here's your certificate of participation.
Thank you.
Michael, and yourself, how long have you been at Toastmasters?
I'm not going to be awesome, so I'm going to say, for security's sake, that I'm just
You can tell us maybe what you like.
No, I'm kidding. No, I've been here for a month now, just over a month.
Wow. Excellent. Doesn't feel like it at all. And what do you like about it?
Well, the great thing about Toastmasters is that you can improve your communication skills, and that is the foundation, that is the backbone of so many things in our life. I mean, relationships, work, what you do in your free time, everything you do is mostly about communication, right? Receiving and sending communication. So this is a great school, opportunity, a place, safe place to learn and grow.
Any hobbies or interests you want to tell us?
Apparently I play guitar well, so on the weekend I was told that I should form a band and make an album. So I'm not sure if I'm that good though, but that's what.
Here's your certificate of participation.
All right, thanks.
Carl, and how long have you been a Toastmaster?
I've been Toastmaster here before, and I was 1 year, and it helped me a lot. Definitely that humor, focus on humor. I like humor, so that helped me a lot. And I would like to just mention, Michael, if you were Toastmaster only for 1 month, you are amazing. If there is nothing from South Africa, many years on that, you are simply amazing. Your improv speeches, etc. And playing guitar.
Thank you, Carl.
I think we have to talk.
No.
And any hobbies, interests you want to share?
Well, I used to play guitar. That was years and years ago, and then I got married. Yeah.
See how this is related.
And here's your certificate. Thanks so much. So now it's time to announce our winners. And we have 3 for 3. So I'll start with third place. Let's welcome back up Michael Maki, third place.
Thank you.
Congratulations. You can stay up here.
All right.
Photo before we depart. Second place goes to Rohit Mosa. Excellent job. Thank you. First elimination, we all know our winner today, Carl. All right, let's do a quick photo first.
Where's the fire gun?
And Michael, if we have to smile, we say, damn.
All right, let's go for it.
Remember,
Okay.
like first time?
1, 2, 3.
2, 3.
Dad.
Another one?
No, I didn't.
1, 2, 3.
Dad.
Sorry.
You guys are gonna do it at the same time.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1.
3, 2, 1,
Dad.
Awesome. Congratulations, guys. So that wraps up the competition. We don't have a date for the area contest yet, but Carl will represent our club to compete at the area level. So we'll announce those details when we have it ready. And our next meeting is on the first week of October. I think it's October 4th, was it? Anyway, we meet on the first and third Thursday of the month. So it'll be in 2 weeks, and that would be October 5th, same time, same place, 5:45. And for our guests, you guys are welcome to join us again, check us out, and any questions, feel free to talk to myself or any of our members. And that wraps it up. Thanks so much for coming out tonight.
Well, that was